Hey everyone, I just wanted to sit here and talk about my favorite watch in my collection actually. That's the Omega Seamaster 300. Now this is the version, um, the last version they actually made that still had the wave dial is what they call it. So if you look at the light, you can see on the dial there's a wave pattern, kind of a faux guilloche so to speak. That the Bond model was very known for in the 90s. Blue dial with the wave on it. It's kind of a watch you see everywhere. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of a young punk watch. When I was a young punk, and I kind of still am, even at 30 years old, I guess. It was something that caught my eye, and I remember thinking, actually, the first time I had seen this was in GoldenEye. Mind you, I know we'll talk about the actual differences from that movie to this version of the watch, but it struck me as something I really liked. That was the first time I think I ever noticed watches. Honestly, I had heard of Rolex, and that was pretty much it. But I didn't know that there was all these other brands that were so on the same level. And not to say Omega is, because it's really not, but there's a lot of brands out there that are way more renowned and famous, and well, not famous necessarily, but better craftsmanship and definitely pricier than Rolex. Patek Philippe comes to mind, but anyways, I digress. So this Seamaster, I saw it in GoldenEye. I really liked it, and I remember kind of forgetting about it until again about probably the mid noughties, and this was about the time when Pierce Brosnan was making his final James Bond flicks. He was getting old and heavy, and they were ready to remove him. But this watch was still on his arm. He wore this in every film he was in, up to the point Daniel Craig in Casino Royale, once he took over as the Bond role, he actually wore this for about half the film, I guess it was. And this is actually the exact model that he wore. And the way you know the difference is if you look on the dial here, it says professional coaxial chronometer. So this is when Omega released the coaxial movement. And I'm not gonna really get into that because honestly I don't know a lot about it. I know it adds another layer to the movement, which in turn makes the case slightly thicker. I'd say it's maybe 1 millimeter thicker, but I had the model actually before this that looks almost the same, but it had the 1120 Omega, which is just a modified ETA movement in it, and it was slightly thinner. And on that one also the hands were shorter. And actually the most noticeable difference between that and this model is if you look on this one, you could see that the markers are applied, as well as the Omega logo, and the Seamaster's in red. On the model previous to this, Seamaster was on the bottom here in white, because obviously it didn't say coaxial, and Omega wasn't in chrome like that. It was in I believe a cream font. But the reason I like this one the most is because really the applied markers. I think it brings a little more class to it. And yeah, it's trying to rip on Rolex a little. They had been doing that, but it really does make it pop a little more. It has less of a tool watch appeal to it, but with the applied markers and the longer hands, I really dig it. The bracelet stayed basically the same, and mine's pretty scratched up. You'll have to excuse me, but I actually wear this thing everywhere. I don't take it off, I wear it in the shower, I wear it to work, to college, whatever I'm doing. Before I retired out of the Army, I wore this the last couple years of my time in the Army. So, I mean, it never came off. And another difference is pretty easy to tell in the models is, you see this one has the really big sea monster, I guess you'd call it, with the Seamaster text above it, and the little globe laser inscribed marker down here. On the version previous to this, this whole thing was more flat, and the Seamaster and Seamaster logo was really just kind of in the center, a lot smaller. So, a few things about this watch. So it is very, very water. What's the word I'm looking for? You're not gonna get water in here. Period. You're not. As long as your crown is screwed down over here, like on any dive watch, you're good to go. I mean, it's rated for 1,000 feet. You know, you're probably not going to surpass the bottom of a 10-foot pool, obviously. So your biggest hazard is obviously in the shower. And I've wore this for years and years in the shower, and it's never once leaked. So it's got a rotating bezel. You see, rotates counterclockwise, not the other way, because it's unidirectional. The whole point of it is a safety feature. Back when divers wore these kind of watches, I mean, they don't do that now. Not at least professionally. That if you bumped it on something, you could only technically lose time. So a diver would never think, oh, I have more, air in my tank than what I really do. But obviously that's obsolete technology now, and it's just kind of thrown there for a nod. And a lot of people don't know the way that you use this directional marker is you just line up this pip right here onto the minute hand, like that. And what that does is as the minute hand progresses around the dial, that's elapsed time. So that's why it would be 5 minutes here, 10 here, 15, and then you start seeing your 20, and it goes by tens. So that's how that works. This little crown over here is what they call a helium escape valve. This is something you'll never touch. You just keep it, sealed down tight. This would be something that theoretically, if you came up from like a saturation dive and you needed to be decompressed or whatnot, this would, during that decompression period, you would unscrew this to let out helium molecules before they would theoretically shatter the crystal. But if you're in that situation, your watch is probably, the last thing you're worried about. You don't want to get the bends. the watch can come and go. But being in the Army, though, I do remember being around some divers out in the where we were at, out by Kuwait, whatever that body of water is called. And like the way they practiced is no matter how deep they went, even if it was only like 50 feet, they still came up and got put in the little decompression chamber. So not the same, but for that case, you wouldn't unscrew that. But all those divers wore big gaudy G-Shocks, by the way, I noticed. All right, so the bracelet is something that's kind of remained the same. The newer model, they still pretty much keep the same pattern. The only difference is the clasp on the newer one. It's a little bit simpler design, whereas this one says Omega Seamaster Professional. The new one just says like Omega, but in bigger font. It has the newer one does have nicer push buttons. They're more elliptical than round. But this one I still prefer the bracelet over, because if you look, it folds in flush. The new model doesn't do that. It actually sticks out here like a traditional bracelet. So I don't know why they went with that design, but I still prefer this one. And that's just me. But yeah, this is just a watch that I don't know. I can't say enough good things about. It's pricey in the terms of an average person thinking a watch is like in the $20 to $50 range, something like that. So when you start talking about thousands, I think I bought this one with box and everything a few years back for like $2,000, shipped and all that, which was a good deal because it was at that time. I mean, you can still see the bezels in prime condition and everything. Accuracy's, oh man, the accuracy on this, don't get me started. It runs at maybe +2 a day. It's almost, it's close to a quartz watch in terms of accuracy. I mean, I've never seen a watch this accurate, mechanical watch. The model that I had before this with the 1120 movement actually ran about 6 seconds fast a day, which I prefer my watches to run fast, obviously over slow, but this one just beats the shit out of it on that. So it's never been serviced. I imagine it's about a 2010 model. So this is 2017 I made this. So 7 years in, I mean, it's nowhere needing serviced. It may not get serviced at this rate if it keeps it up. And I'm just going to college now. So like I said, I retired out of the Army. So it's not getting any kind of like physical usage other than maybe me running outside with it or something like that. But man, there's just not enough good things I could say about it. If you wonder what the reference is, it's in the description, but it's 220.80 is the quickest way to find it. It runs a little pricier than the models before, like I said, without the coaxial movement. And don't buy one, I'll say this, don't buy one that's a quartz movement. You'll regret it, you really will. And you'll have to change the battery and it's gonna piss you off. Don't do that. And don't buy a mid-sized either. This is a perfect size. It's a 41, but it really wears more like a 42. And that's probably the sweet spot now. Whereas I used to think 40, I'd say about 42 now. Getting modernized, I guess. Oh, lastly, if you see this model and you notice it looks a little different, like it's missing the wave dial, for instance, it's just all black or blue, and it has a different kind of bezel. That's the new model. That's the new S&P 300. It's pretty nice too. I actually really do like the new ceramic bezel and how light reflects off of it. It's really fucking sexy actually, especially in the black model. But I missed the wave dial. I mean, I feel like that was the thing that set it apart from everything else. So anyways, this has already went on for long enough. I guess I'll put it on the wrist real quick so you can get an idea of what it looks like. You have to excuse my... So I have I think about a 7.5 or so wrist, and this is what it comes out to, which to me is about perfect size. I mean, it tucks nicely under a sleeve. You know, it's not something that is gonna draw a lot of attention, but it is a well-known watch. So people that are, you know, self-proclaimed aficionados or whatever, they're gonna know what it is, and you know that's okay. So anyways, yeah, hope you liked the review, and sorry if I left anything out. All right, thanks guys.